Here we are with the next episode of Step by Step, my methods, how I make a bespoke kilt from scratch, from start, I should say. I've gone ahead and finished the pleating, or at least I'm reached the point where I'm ready to sew the last pleat to number 25 to the apron. I'd said something in the previous videos about I was going to talk to you at the halfway mark, but things didn't work out. I had the bit between my teeth. I just kept going. So when I reached the halfway mark, the middle back pleat, I stop for a moment and I measure at the 2.5 inches down where the buckle is going to be. I measure at that spot below the natural waist, and then and to see if I'm on target, right? And just to avoid confirmation bias, I make the measurement and then I check to see what it should be. So 22 inches, so half back is 11 inches, bang on. Down at the bottom of the fell, I do the same thing. I look 12 for 24. Well, so it's an inch over, but I'm not upset about that because we can allow, in fact, we actually want a bit of ease around the seat. So there we are. So I've reached pleat number 25, and I do the same thing again. I measure at the waist, bang on, perfect, 22. Measure at the seat, okay, again, 24, an inch over. But again, we want a little bit of ease. And the other thing is, when we thin out the back and do the steeking is going to pull it in a little bit. I'm going to measure this after I've done the steeking just to see, because I intuitively know what happens. I've observed it, but with this time I'm actually going to measure to see how much that was. So we'll lose a little bit off that, but in any case, I'm happy with that. The other thing I'm looking for when I reach this stage is I look at each pleat to make sure that that the lines are all straight, that there's no wobble, right? Because it's quite easy when you get the bit between your teeth and you're going. You'll put in a pleat and it looks fine, and it's not until you've done a few more that you look at it, and when it's flanked by another two, you can see, oh geez, it's a bit wobbly, right? So if that's the case, you got to decide what you're going to do, because I'm paid, I'm professional in that I get paid for this. If this was a bad pleat, I'd be putting in, this is that hobby polystyrene plastic, I would put this in to isolate that seam, and I would take that seam apart and do it again. Sometimes you'll see right at the top, you'll see the lines just sort of go over a little bit, and like this one, it's a tiny bit over. But I'm not going to beat myself up about that, because when I put the top band on, that's going to be hidden. I don't consider that unacceptable. So the next stage is I've marked my last pleat. Do you remember how I put that arrow mark to remind myself? And then I marked the right hand edge. So I'm going to bring this over, find my little cache of pins, which I've hidden just off camera here. Here we are. And I'm going to pin this up. And pin. And one more. Good. Now, remember when we started off, initially we counted 26 pleats, and I thought, I don't want that. I'm going to drop it so I have an odd number. The other beneficial effect of that is it's given us a little more cloth here on the left side. So originally, and I'm starting to get a lot of marks here, so I've crossed out marks. In fact, let me cross out that one as well, so don't get confused. So, yeah, so as I've mentioned in an earlier video, I've just recently, in the last year or so, I've started making my inner apron a little bit wider than the outside apron. And that's so that at the edge of the cloth, we don't have a gap between the buttonhole and the edge of the cloth, where sometimes you can get pinched. It's annoying and it just feels unprofessional, right? So the front apron is going to be 24 and 25. The inner apron is going to be 25 and about 25 3/4. It doesn't have to have that full dramatic A-line. So I've remarked it because initially, remember, this was going to be my center, and then I moved it over, and then actually this is the right center now. I moved it over again. Or is it wrong? That's my center. That's my actual center now. Okay. So, because I'd done it to my original marks, and the deep pleat was like almost to the middle or a little past the middle. I thought, nope, that's a bit too much. We do want that deep pleat for the reasons that I've said before, but not to be excessive. So I moved it over a half of a set, or half of a repeat, so it's centered like the front apron. It's now centered on the black line on green. Seem to have missed a pin for right there, but I'm not going to worry. Oh, no, there it is. Ouch. And last one, I'm going to pin there. So that's, for the total width, that is between 1/4 and 1/3, which is a good depth. So from here, I'll be pretty much carrying on as usual. I'm going to go back and look at my other videos that I've posted on the subject of shaping the inner apron. If that presentation still stands by itself, I'll post a link in the description. But if I have new comments or more information, I'll shoot another video where I'm showing my latest practice for shaping. So from here, I'm going to sew this seam. I'm going to baste this panel. I'm going to baste down for the edge to establish the shape of the right-hand edge of the inner apron. Now, remember, we wanted a bit of cloth. We want 2 strips of cloth for the fringe. This is not a military kilt, so it's going to have a fringe on the outside edge. So my apron, which is now 25 inches, comes to there. And again, remember, my habit for the amount of cloth for the tucked under edge of an apron is a hand span, which for me is between 8 and 9 inches. Curiously, my left hand has almost an inch greater span than my right hand does. So I'm going to use my left hand because it's longer. So that's almost 9 inches there. And that, again, that is it provides weight on the end of the apron, prevents the kilt from flying up. Also, once again, it's a reserve of cloth should this person's figure change in the future, or should it be inherited or sold to somebody who is of more grand dimensions yet. But still, that gives us a fair amount of cloth left over. So I'm actually going to go past that. So what I did was I've decided here's my 2 strips. And what I've done, when I mark these strips, wherever possible, I'll incorporate an element of the tartan, because that 1/2 inch there between the yellow and the white, that's going to be in my fringe. And the same again there. So having done that, my next stage, it's another indicator of the quality of this cloth, that when I rip it, I have to put my shoulders into it. A few years ago, I tore a rotator cuff, and I had a hell of a time trying to work. Scissors out the way. Second strip. Okay, I'll be using those. The last thing I'm going to do here, I guess I can get rid of that face now. Last thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to cut a little relieving cut right there. See, I've just knocked the corner off, and that is going to be an aid. That's going to be a benefit when I'm sewing this up. So that's as far as this episode was going to go. As I said, I'll either post a link to a previous video I've shot on shaping the inner apron, or I'll shoot a new video if things have changed that much. So thank you, and carry on.